In June 2016, London and Brussels took different courses following the decision by the British to take the step towards breaking up in the historic referendum. The Leave vote outnumbered the vote to remain in the European Union, winning the support of 51.89% of ballots. The promises of a more prosperous future for the country, once outside the EU bloc, seem to have gone unfulfilled. After several years of Brexit, the picture shows the United Kingdom plunged into darkness, with an economy that's not recovering and that has been rocked by persistent political chaos. The British have clearly lost out. The only things that have happened so far are great complications. The United Kingdom has remained a bit of a middling economy. It's in the background, says Albert Sanchez-Grales, professor of economic law at the University of Bristol. The latest delay shows that Britain is still struggling to face the painful consequences of leaving the European Union in January 2020, which has increased costs for UK businesses and weighed on trade, investment, and ultimately, economic growth. The UK's exit from the EU was not good news for the British economy. It suffered a decline on the trade front, and there is less investment in the UK than there would have been without Brexit. Dennis Novi, professor of economics at the University of Warwick, comments that to move forward, you have to make it work. You have to limit the damage and remember that Brexit is not only bad for the British economy, but also for the European Union. Brexit has created tensions in the UK's major trading relationships, impacted the value of the pound, and increased the prices of imported goods, which has contributed to high inflation in the country. According to a recent study by the London School of Economics, Brexit has caused about a third of food price inflation, increasing Britain's grocery bill by nearly £7 billion, or $8.8 billion, since 2019. The consequences of the UK's exit from the EU are far-reaching, affecting businesses and economies, as well as people on both sides of the channel and many aspects of their lives. This video examines the impact of Brexit so far after the UK left the EU. That is, since the new relationship came into effect. It looks at the economic situation, the political chaos, and the regret of most British citizens. So, let's get started. Although those who urged leaving the European Union predicted a prosperous economic future, the data on the British economy do not show those benefits they promised. Supporters of Brexit presented it as the possibility that the UK could move into a golden age of economic prosperity. But today, nothing that Brexit has brought has delivered that prosperity. Inflation remains at a 40-year high, and the Bank of England predicts that the country will enter a long recession in the coming months. Experts point out that although factors such as the pandemic or the war in Ukraine have affected the whole world, the impact has been greater in the United Kingdom because of Brexit. The economy is in a completely stagnant situation. Almost the entire public, or almost public sector, is on strike because citizens are increasingly squeezed. This is in reference to the wave of protests that the country is experiencing, which have been joined by railway workers, teachers, and nurses, among others. It's a very complicated economic situation, with no signs of improvement in the short or medium term. The United Kingdom's exit from the EU has reduced trade between London and Brussels by around 15%. In addition, 77% of British companies admit that the Brexit trade deal has not helped them expand their business, according to a British Chambers of Commerce survey. The most obvious consequence of Brexit has been its effect on trade. Trade relations between the UK and the EU have been complicated because London has left the single market, which means there's now a lot of red tape. It's claimed that some UK companies have stopped doing business with the EU, and if you talk to business organizations, they confirm that they don't want any of these barriers. The UK government has delayed health and safety checks on food imports from the EU for the 5th time in 3 years, amid fears that additional controls will push up food prices and disrupt vital supplies. The government is anxious to avoid doing anything to make matters worse. The announcement I present in 2023 highlights long-standing concerns that border controls on food imports from the EU, which supplies 28% of the food consumed in Britain, could choke supplies. Official forecasts by independent UK government analysts estimate that the new UK-EU trading relationship will result in a long-term productivity loss of 4% compared to remaining in the EU. Many 2022 reports show that the UK has underperformed other countries since the start of the pandemic. Official figures show that its economy is the only one in the group of 7 contracting. The December 2022 report from the Centre for European Reform describes the impact of Brexit on UK GDP, investment, and trade. There are many views on the impact of Brexit on the UK's high inflation rate, but it has to do with rising food prices. And if you like what you see by now, please drop a like on the video. That would really be rewarding for us. Now, let's go on. Since the referendum on the United Kingdom's membership of the European Union was held on June 2016, 4 members of the Conservative Party have occupied number 10 Downing Street, from Theresa May to the current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Boris Johnson, the great architect of Brexit, was forced to resign over the scandal of the parties held in Downing Street during the pandemic, known as Partygate. Liz Truss, who was his foreign minister, later became his successor and presented an aggressive fiscal plan that sowed chaos in the financial markets. Sunak became the new and current tenant of number 10 Downing Street and has presented a program of spending cuts to reduce debt and tax hikes that's not convincing. According to Professor Novi, Brexit is responsible for the political chaos that the country has experienced in recent years. It has polarized society a lot and has been very painful politically for the UK, he says. Many politicians did not tell the truth when talking about Brexit. Many said that nothing would change in the economy and that everything would stay the same. Now, we know that wasn't true, he notes. The UK's exit from the EU has been symptomatic of the country's political chaos. The British political system is particularly vulnerable to minority control within the Conservative Party. The Brexit is a weakness in the British two-party system that may not have been seen until now, and probably stems from a populist turn in British politics. In this sense, Professor Cyan Francis, PhD in history from the University of Deusto, believes that Brexit is perhaps the most visible part of the chaos politically. The British economy since Brexit has entered a spiral of self-destruction that is unprecedented in the country's history. But part of the dissolution of the practice of traditional politics is accelerated by the Brexit referendum, he stresses. Regarding everything we've talked about, how have British citizens reacted? Protests and demands for the UK to rejoin the EU are growing steadily in the country, where most say Brexit has failed. In 2023, some 20,000 people demonstrated in London, demanding that political leaders pursue another complex and highly contentious negotiating path with Brussels. According to YouGov, a British polling firm, some 62% of Britons believe Brexit is a failure. The British economy has been hit hard by Brexit. Specifically, prices increased by 25% between January 2021 and March this year, and food costs increased by £6.95 billion, or $8 billion, due to the additional trade barriers created by leaving the single market. According to the LSE report, the poorest people in society, who spend most of their income on food, are suffering the most. In addition, researchers at the Center for European Reform estimate that Brexit has reduced business investment by 23% compared to 2020-21. Pro-EU campaigner Femi Olowole says Brexit no longer convinces half the public like it used to. Nigel Farage says Brexit has failed and won't do anything for our economy, he said. The public, including many Brexiters, have given up on the idea that Brexit can be made to work. But some of the latter continue to promulgate phrases like, "Oh, we would do Brexit differently." Moreover, it's become clear that sovereignty no longer prevails in the debate. As a result, the reality of the cost of Brexit is beginning to take its toll. The debates that were going on 6 or 7 years ago about Britain's sovereignty and all that sort of thing, they're over. The British face the fact that there are more important things in life. Some experts on the subject, like Olowole, are asking, can you feed your kids right now? Half of low-income families in the UK skip meals to feed their children. We can't afford Brexit if we can't afford food, he's asserted. Now, I want to ask you who are watching this video. Did you see the backlash to the British economy before the Brexit deal went into effect? Let me know your answer in the comment box. And if you like this video, I invite you to subscribe and leave your like for more videos like this one. See you next time.